Welcome to Light Warrior Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Can, author of the #1 best-selling book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower: How to Harness Your Gifts, Fulfill Your Purpose, and Create a Life of Joy. And if you are a sensitive soul, welcome to the Light Warrior Radio podcast. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'd love for you to join our community. We call it the Light Medicine Community, and you can actually get a free gift and come into the community at the same time. So I do have a PDF guide called the Sensitive Soul Empowerment Guide, the 3 ways of navigating your way to more peace, positivity, and personal power so that you can live the life of your dreams and be totally on purpose and helping us create heaven on earth all together. And through that PDF, you will get a link to go right into the Light Medicine community, which is on an app called Circle, and we really like it. It's sort of looks like Facebook, except, they don't spy on you and there's no censoring. So we really have a lot of fun. We do mini healings on there. So we'd love for you to join the community. Now, today I have a very special guest, and I have had this question for quite some time, and lo and behold, the universe was like, here you go. I had the question of, who is this Mary Magdalene? I've heard she was Jesus's #1 apostle. I've heard that she was his wife. I've heard, that she has her own books, and it's not included in the Bible. So I was like, I'm not an expert in this arena. Please give me someone who is, and ta-da! So today's guest is Marguerite Rigoglioso, and she's a PhD and the foremost authority on the history of the virgin birth and the author of the bold new award-winning book, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception. We could talk a little bit about that too. Mary and the Lineage of Virgin Birth. So Marguerite has taught many graduate and undergraduate courses in the US and the UK, and in 2012 founded her own Seven Sisters Mystery School, through which she's been teaching about the sacred feminine and mentoring clients on the evolutionary spiritual path. Her newest course, The 7 Mysteries of Magdalene, is enrolling, started in February of 2023. So if you're watching this after that, it is now available on replay, and you can, of course, connect with her after and find out more about that course. Just so you know, she's also the author of Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity and the Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece. So happy to welcome you to the show, Marguerite.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Well, you just look like the goddess that I imagine you to be, given your specialty. So tell us about how you grew up. How does one become interested in this kind of stuff in the first place?
It's a matter of whether you just want to talk about this lifetime or other lifetimes. And
we're all good for all of it.
We're all good for I just think this is a plan over a number of lifetimes, as it was, I believe, with Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, where you come back again and again and again in different guises. And sometimes these are positive guises, sometimes negative. You're learning all the way. And then you have this rendezvous with destiny written in your contract, like, wow, I'm going to come to Earth right about now and help deliver these certain messages as a means of being in service and cleansing my own karma for other things that have gone on. So that's kind of like the big picture. And then in this lifetime, so, if you believe that you choose your families, what I chose was to grow up in a Catholic family, Italian American, where my mother was ill and she was going to die, which she did when I was young. And so I was 10 years old. And so that was an initiation into the death realms, really. And by being an initiation into the death realms, it's an initiation into the other worlds, right? You begin a great curiosity. What is the soul? Where does the soul go? And so I think in a way that was my awakening to the goddess right there. And after that, certainly, going through many travails, difficulties, hell realm experiences that I had to heal from, that took me on the healing path. And so the healing path joined with the spiritual path, and many other things happened in between. But, here I am. That's one version of the short story.
Oh, that's very interesting. Now, I grew up Catholic as well. And I was very religious growing up until I hit university, and my future husband, then boyfriend, was an atheist. And he shared with me about all the atrocities that the church had performed over the history. And I didn't know anything about history. I was so innocent, right? And about crusades and the things. And I literally was so shocked. I just became atheist overnight. I was like, how could this be? And then later on, being my own illness and then connecting to my own spirituality, I realized religion is not spirituality. And yeah, probably everyone who's watching the show is like, yeah, we get that. But Mary Magdalene has always been a mystery to me, and somehow I'm very drawn to learn more about her. So I'm so excited for you to share some of that information. Where do you think we should start?
Right. I mean, Mary Magdalene, she is a mystery and she's filled with mysteries. And that's what I'm teaching in my class, the 7 Mysteries of Magdalene, because I've discerned that out of what I've read in the not only the canonical, official gospels, but the not what are called the Gnostic gospels, that's where all the good stuff is, really.
Does that
About
have to do with the
Magdalene.
Essenes, or I don't
I
really?
think so. I mean, some
Okay.
people think that what's being described in a lot of the Gnostic Gospels was the philosophies and the lifestyles of the Essenes, this group of
Mm,
spiritual people in the Middle Eastern part of the world, Egypt and the Levant coast and so forth. And so, by looking at that material, because I always like to ground in the texts and then sort of
thank
receive
you. Yeah.
intuition and revelation from there. And so I just became really, really interested in the texts. And the person who really helped me with that was Margaret Starbird. This is a name that is from back in the 90s when she wrote her book, The Woman with the Alabaster Jar, that Dan Brown based his book, The Da Vinci Code, on. It was all of her
Mm.
research. I mean, she was the pioneer. She was the door opener about Mary Magdalene. And I was starting to awaken to the goddess back in the 90s. And so I began to teach on Mary Magdalene, her material. And then I got exposed to the scholar Karen King at Harvard, her material, her book on Mary Magdalene's gospel, the gospel that was written where she is the main person in it. And I was able to really read into what was being said. It's kind of a dense text, And over the years, I've been able to understand all this material at deeper and deeper and deeper levels. So that's kind of how I came into it and how I approach it. And there are so many angles to Mary Magdalene, and it's not really just about her, but it's about us. What was she learning as a spirit being? And how is she a teacher and a mentor to us today? How can we, go into her treasury and receive the information we need for our own process of spiritual growth, what some people call ascension, what I call inscension, because it's
Mm.
an inside job and it's all about
Yes, I love that.
bringing heaven to earth and, kind of blooming what's within us, blooming the divine within us. Okay. So she was all about that. And there were various roads that you understand she was connected with by looking at these textual fragments. And that's what I expand out and help make relevant, to all of us in my work and in this course.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. My understanding is that there are some of the texts that were either lost or destroyed. So there's little pieces. Is that true?
That's right. I mean, we don't even know what was destroyed, right? So
Mm,
we don't know what we don't know. But even that Gospel of Mary has large chunks taken out.
mm.
And there's various ways you can figure that out, because then it references later something that must have been earlier in the text. So they figure that, there's like 5 pages taken out. I don't know how they figured out 5 pages, but whatever. Um, yeah, stuff was missing. And then, some things are found with holes in them and you can't read what the word is, or, so the scholars do the best they can to make their way through it. And it even still, it's remarkable what's in there. And that is some of what we're going to be, what I'm looking at in this class.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah,
Now,
because
given,
what is this about for us? Not
yes,
just how is this interesting philosophical material, like,
just
oh,
history, right? It's just history, something
no,
to
but
read
this
in the
is about,
text.
right, this is about like our deepest soul's desire, which
Mm,
is unification with the divine. That's what all of this is
mm,
about. And then it's,
beautiful.
how do we do that? Right? Especially in this day and age, this workaday world where it's like so difficult to even get on your meditation cushion, let alone think about, incension. So, that's why these teachings and courses like this are important, and accessing these beings through our own intuition as mentors is important, because the information will come, the tools will come, the practices will come, and it really is about practice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, there's a lot of leftover, let's just say, from my church days that they didn't really talk about or even really mention Mary Magdalene. Like, and even what I'm reading, I just bought it's so funny, the whole synchronicity thing. I was at a consciousness conference, and JJ Hurtak and Desiree Hurtak were there, and they have a book on Mary Magdalene. I just started reading it. I'm not very much through it because it's a lot of commentary based on these little snippets, and it's very much along the lines of what you're talking about. But all I heard growing up was she was a prostitute, she was cleansed of demons, and then she started following Jesus. I mean, that was it. There was nothing
Right.
else that I learned in school. So maybe you can enlighten us on what really happened, maybe.
Yeah. So let's take those three facts. Okay. She was a prostitute. What you can start finding out by putting together what's in the New Testament with what's in the Gnostic Gospels, with the larger context of understanding in that ancient part of the world, is that she probably was a sacred sexual priestess. Okay. And this is not a New Age idea. This is based on the fact that even in the Hebrew Bible and beyond, you see that there were these sexual servant women, kind of, Kadesha. All right. And they sometimes were virgins. They sometimes seemed to be sexual workers or something like that. And when you go back into the Babylonian period, you find that this role was, as the farther you go back into history, the more elevated this role was, until it was like at the level of the queen in Sumer, where the queen was this new gig. She was a high priestess who was a prostitute, which meant that she was engaged in sexual, spiritual rituals, probably originally designed to have an elevated kind of conception that would happen with her consort. Okay. And then over the years, this kind of ended up degenerating into temple prostitution, where men would come in, pay for sex, and pay the temple. Like this is how it degenerated over time. But I think we can understand that Mary Magdalene was originally one of these, and Mother Mary was one of these, but she was doing it in the celibate way. Magdalene was doing it in the way that would join with a physical partner, and Mother Mary was doing it in a way that would join her own inner being to be able to engender a child. Okay, virgin birth. This is all part of a spectrum of these womb mysteries that these women were involved in. So, okay, Mary Magdalene is prostitute, maybe, but originally sacred tantric priestess. Okay, that's what that meant. Then that she was cured of demons. That's what it says in Luke, I believe. Well, yeah, we all need entity removal. Pretty much every person on the planet needs entity removal, because we have these entities hooked in to our wounds, and they're the ones that get us addicted and keep us addicted and make us get all enraged with each other and see things in distorted ways, because these beings get energy from that, right? This is a part of understanding the other world, the other ecology that is parallel and feeds into the three-dimensional world, which Mary Magdalene knew well about. So did Mother Mary, so did Jesus, so did the whole Holy Family. And you can see this in these alternative gospels, okay? So Mary Magdalene probably had a depossession at some point, and I think it was, one for each chakra, and that rendered her freer to be able to do her work. And then, so it was what? Prostitute, demons, and then what was the third thing that you said that you learned about her in
let's see, that she was Jesus's, yeah, some people say that she was his wife, but some other people say that was not what I just said, but I just remembered.
Right.
Some people say that she's the number one apostle, the best student.
The number one apostle, okay. Yeah, because she was at the cross, and she was the one in the canonical gospels who comes and tells everybody that the resurrection has happened, that Jesus has gone rainbow body. We don't see his body anymore, okay? And so that indicated she had a pretty high status with him.
Right.
Well, what we see in the Gnostic Gospels is it's way more than that. First of all, she was there because she was applying the sacred holy oils to the anointing, to the body at the death portal to help that body, it would be myrrh, to help that soul go into the other world. Secondly, she was very close to Jesus. The Gnostic Gospels tell us that she, Mother Mary, and Mother Mary's sister, another Mary, were always around Jesus. Okay. And the Gnostic Gospels tell us that not only was she the one who was always listening to Jesus and had a way higher perception of what he was saying than all the other apostles, and he praised her for that, but that he kissed her. And there's a way the text is written where you can understand she's being shown to be his sacred consort, and he's being shown to be hers, that they are engaged in a marital type of situation. Okay. And others have written about that. I'm writing about that in my forthcoming book about Mother Mary, and my second book on Mother Mary. So that's how you can blow out all those original, very diminished, it's like leaves from a tree that came down and crunched up version of Mary Magdalene, and you can just plump it up, put it back on the tree, and go, wow, that is some woman.
That's so super interesting. Like I said, I didn't get through her textbook yet, and they're just commenting on the various different pieces. And one of the things that when we talked about the whole prostitute thing was that they mentioned Mary a number of times, but they actually don't mention that it's the same person, because there's Mary was like Joan Smith, like everybody's Jane Smith, right? So, and like there was a Mary Magdalene that was cleansed of 7 demons, and then there was Mary the prostitute, but they didn't actually say that Mary Magdalene was the prostitute, if you look at the original text. So I didn't get very far in the book, but that was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Exactly. Actually, the New Testament does not say that. What it says is that there was a woman who anointed Jesus' feet or head, in 2 different stories, with nard or myrrh, and that basically she was a fallen woman. You can make an argument that this was Mary Magdalene by piecing together various things from the other Gospels. And that's what Margaret Starbird did. That's what one of the popes did as well. He put them all together and said, oh, that was Mary Magdalene. Therefore, she was a prostitute. Therefore, this, that, and the other thing. There's argument whether these are all the same Mary or whether they're all different Marys. But the point is that one way or another, you can discern in the Gnostic sources that Magdalene was consorted with Jesus, and that, right? And so I think the prostitute thing, it comes in obliquely. It's like a far distant memory of these Kadesha priestesses, right? On some level, those popes were picking up on it, right? And so one way or another, we can make these cases and we can discern and we can flesh out Mary Magdalene, okay? The reason why there were a lot of Marys is that Mary, what I found in my research is that Mary is a priestess title. It in Hebrew would have been Miriam or Mariam in some of the traditions, which my research going to, there's a book called Jesus in Egypt, I believe, and D.M. Murdoch makes the case that the name Mary comes from the Egyptian Mary, which was a title connected to Isis. It was a title of honor connected to Isis. So that you understand that this Mary name came out of an Isis connection. Isis also gave divine birth. She was Mother Mary's incarnation before her lifetime as Mary, according to Rudolf Steiner, for example. Okay. And so the name was a priestess title, okay? It denoted divine priestess of love and womb mysteries. That's what I have discerned in my research. That is why we have so many Marys running around the Bible. Sometimes they're actually the same person being described. Sometimes they're not. But what I have uncovered is that there was basically a sacred order of the Marys.
Oh, that makes sense.
Is what we're resurrecting today.
Oh, that's so interesting. And is there somewhere in the research that Mary and Jesus had children?
Yes, though in the stories, in the legends of France, that can't be traced to the texts, the Gnostic or the canonical texts. But the legends in France persist that Mary Magdalene came with a child, Sarah La Kali, in a boat. And it's Margaret Starbird who makes the link. This was the daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Okay. So there are those legends in France. And then there's Sri Kaleshwar, who's the late Hindu saint. He died in 2012. He was only on the planet for a brief time, but he claimed to have past life memory of walking with the Holy Family. And he has a different timeline, an alternative timeline that says that Jesus resurrected into India and that Mary Magdalene joined him there eventually. They had children there, and that their bloodlines still continue on throughout the planet. So whether you adhere to the timeline that Jesus resurrected body and soul went to India, because there is evidence that Jesus was in India, or whether you adhere to the timeline that he resurrected out of his body, maintained presence on the astral plane, and Magdalene and Mother Mary and all the others stayed around until the end of their earthly lives. Whatever the case may be, there's something being said about Jesus and Magdalene's union, Jesus and Magdalene's lineage. What is that all about? What does that have to do with us today? And so forth.
Yeah, it's interesting. My husband's really into this book called The Christ Letters, and he really wanted me to read it. He's, I think, reading it for the 7th time in a row. It's that impactful for him. So, and he went through A Dark Night of the Soul, just going through various different parts of it. And at first I was like, so does he talk about Mary, his wife? Right? And he's like, no. And I was like, disappointed. But I thought, well, I'm going to read it. And really the book was about his mission, and literally he was teaching quantum physics. And so
the guy was freaking teaching quantum physics.
Yes.
You just have to look at these Gnostic Gospels to understand that. Now, is this your atheist husband?
No, this is the other husband. I divorced the atheist husband.
All right. And now
This
you're
one is
with the
not.
Christed guy. Okay, whatever.
Right. And just from piecing together things from the book that I just started to read, it sounds like that Mary Magdalene, really understood what Jesus was trying to get across and what Jesus was talking about in the Christed letters, which of course was channeled through an elderly woman who he said took 40 years for him to cleanse her of enough ego that he could come through properly.
Wow.
So even though I was disappointed that he didn't mention Mary,
Okay.
he basically said his disciples just did not get him. Like they didn't totally understand the message. They were still locked into that 3D, like, how does this all work? And the whole Lamb of God and the blood and this. And he's like, oh, I have to talk to them on that level, and it frustrated him. So for whatever that's worth, I thought that was interesting that she was not mentioned.
Yeah, but fill in. It's like every oracle, every channeler has an angle on it,
Yeah.
a piece of the elephant that they're touching,
Yes.
a spin-off of the same fractal. Each person brings their medicine into it based on their own knowings, abilities to understand, their own exposure to information, their own past lives and proclivities and things like that. So you kind of like read, oh, what does that one say? What does that one say? What does that one say? I actually try not to read very much in the way of channeled literature about this, because I just want to stay clear and open myself to just receive directly what I'm supposed to receive, offer that out into the world, and then others can put the puzzle pieces together however they will.
Yes, yeah. So tell us about, or a little bit about, the whole 7 mysteries. What's that?
So Magdalene's 7 mysteries. This is what I discern from looking at her material. There are, first of all, as I alluded to, her mystery of anointing and scent. This was a high priestess function, using anointing oils for death and embalming, but also using incense for opening up people's consciousness originally. I think this incense originally was laced with something, and then they'd be like, woo, let's go have the Last Supper, which was also laced with something, right? I mean, Brian Murarescu in his The Immortality Key is really, and others have really been showing, what are these sacraments? They are hallucinogenic, okay? So Mary Magdalene was one of the myrrh-bearing women. And so we're going to be looking at what is that mystery of anointing, of oil, of scent, okay? And how is that relevant to us today? How can we use these scents and other means to open our consciousness, right? Then there's the mystery of sacred marriage, as well as the mystery of the bridal chamber. Now, they sound like they're the same thing, but one is really about the mystery of uniting with the partner on a tantric level, high holy level. The other is the mystery of uniting with oneself, the inner bridal chamber, that is almost like it's the prerequisite to everything else, as well as the goal, if you will, in an interesting paradox, because it's like you, in a way, need to have the total unification within to really have a sacred marriage at the highest level.
Right.
And then if you have a sacred marriage within, you're like, I'm good. I'm set. I'm good. I'm plugged in. What more do I need?
Right.
And so they're complementary and mirroring inner outer mysteries. Okay. And then we've got the mystery of the Mary sister love. Okay. That mystery, which is a little bit what I was just talking about. It's the mystery of the Sacred Heart. And that's what all these Mary priestesses embodied or aimed to embody. And then, all of these mysteries have relevance in our lives. And that's where I take people in the class, right? Tools and methods for further activating this within ourselves, because we want to have all of these mysteries activated within us. This is the purpose for many of us in this lifetime. Just stating it outright. It's why you came here. You're hearing it on Karen's show. This means you, in case you forgot. And then we have the mystery of transforming demons, okay, for healing ourselves. I alluded to that a little bit earlier. What are these demons? Where do we encounter them? How do they deal with us? How do they talk to us? How do we deal with them? Something pretty interesting that needs to be revealed and talked about, because, demons are us. We're dealing with this all the time. And all of these unpleasantnesses and atrocities and traumas that are happening, they are connected in. All of these traumas that we've had in our childhood are connected in through these types of beings, right? It's not just that your mother or father was an SOB. It's that, wow, they were wounded and they were tied in with this intergenerational demonic thing that's been going on for everyone, okay? There's the mystery of bringing heaven to earth, that Mary Magdalene, we hear a story that 7 times a day she was doing that. And what is that about? How is that relevant to us? How can we bring heaven to earth 7 times a day? Why 7? I mean, what does that do for our lives? And then the mystery of sacred sisterhood, which I found out a lot about through my research on Mother Mary and finding out her relationship with Mary Magdalene in some of Mary's biographies, which of course are ignored by the Catholic Church, even though they're really old. They could go back to the 2nd century. So like authentic, kind of close to the ground information about her. An amazing high holy master, Mother Mary, mentor to Mary Magdalene, and sister guru. How did they support one another? How were they around Jesus? How did they support him? And how does that medicine help us heal from our sister wounds, be it with women in our families, women in our communities, Mother Mary as like the best mother-in-law you could want, right?
Oh, that's interesting. We don't hear very much in the church about the dad, about Joseph. Like, hear a lot about Virgin Mary and,
right.
She's exalted at this level, and we don't hear much about the dad.
No, and half the time you don't hear that much about Mother Mary either, so
there's at least a statue of her.
Right, exactly. You have to go into these older gospels that weren't considered official or canonical to find out about these people. And then this is why, oracles will step in and they'll be like, well, I want to pull in information about that person. Okay, here's what I'm getting. Right?
Okay.
Believe it. So we're
right.
together, we're putting a lot of puzzle pieces on the table. And there may not just be one puzzle. There may be multiple puzzles depending on the level of your own spiritual vibration and where you're at and where you're going. Okay. These puzzles are at layers.
Ooh, okay. That makes me want to ask another question. Okay. So there is the thought that, there are merged multiple timeline realities, or merge may not be the right word, but there are multiple timeline realities playing themselves out, and we are at this place that can be aware of multiple parallel timelines which have different outcomes. One outcome is Jesus literally physically died on the cross. The other is, no, he actually didn't physically die. Somebody died in his place and he escaped to go somewhere else. So right. Is this part of what you were talking about before?
Yes. And then there's another one, which I just mentioned. Kaleshwar says that actually Jesus did go on the cross, but he and Mother Mary had been working at these yogas through mantric practices and all this, so that they knew how to sequester his soul, turn back time, and then restore him to his body. But she was using her womb chakra to do that, and he got catapulted to India. She resurrected him in the tomb after his broken body was taken down. They were masters of the Siddhic powers. They knew how to do Parakaya Pravesh, bring the dead back to life. Okay.
Mm.
So that's another layer. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
Another puzzle.
so here's the thing. The point is, what layer brings you the most medicine and the most advancement for your soul?
Ah.
That's how multiplicitous that this is. That's how multidimensional this is. Right? So what is the Mary you want? What is the Magdalene you want? What is the Jesus you want? How do you want to be that? Okay. The Magdalene you want is the Magdalene you want to be. And the Magdalene you're cultivating within. Maybe in another lifetime, you'll cultivate a different Magdalene, or you know what I mean? But this is
so you're
how
saying it's what serves us in this moment, and it's personal to us, so no one can dictate which of these realities or storylines is absolute truth and which one
that's
we
right.
should believe in.
Because the archonic demonic forces will try to sequester you into one timeline that serves them. Okay, so you need to break away.
I like that choice.
Yeah.
That freedom of choice.
That's right. And you know what? It's even in the Gospel of Philip. He's like, these beings will appear to you how you are. So if you raise how you are, they appear to you higher.
Interesting.
Or if you are able to see them as higher, you raise yourself up as higher. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. And that's why I'm teaching about this and providing tools, and many other people are on the planet, you know.
And so people will feel called, right? Like they'll feel a calling or resonance with going, oh, I need to lean in because this feels right for me to learn this. And other people would be like, I don't know, it's not my thing.
Not my thing, you know, I'm over here with this tradition, or, you know, and that's fine, because there's so many peoples and traditions and medicines all over the world. This isn't necessarily one that has to be adhered to for everyone. These are beings that are helpful to people who feel the vibration of them in their own harp, right? And know based on lifetimes and agreements and contracts, oh, that's what I'm supposed to listen to right now. That's for my growth.
Yes.
Okay, but somebody in whatever country and whatever culture may not be on this path of the Sophia Christ, you know, but they might have an equivalent that's just in different names.
Right.
That's the really interesting part of it.
Right. So yeah, because people will often say, you know, the Christ grid or Christ consciousness, and so for those maybe cultures that don't necessarily talk about Jesus or talk about Christ, what you're saying is that there is it's the same thing in a way, but it's maybe a different name, or it's still that same elevated grid or frequency.
Yeah. You know, anything that has an esoteric tradition is eventually going to meet up with this, or is already there with the same type of information, maybe called a different thing. Quantum physics, whatever.
Right. Right. Well, and what about Egypt? I just remembered that there is some talk that Jesus may have been in the sarcophagus of Egypt, and maybe Mary Magdalene even traveled there with him. So do you know anything about that?
You know, that would be, I don't know if there are legends in that regard that we can find in the ancient lore, or if that is revelation by contemporary people. To my knowledge, I don't find it in the texts, but it certainly is interesting, because we know that, you know, in the Hebrew tradition was very much connected with Egypt. We know that through Moses and the whole story of Sarah and Hagar, and, you know, everything that was going on with them. Would it be a surprise that they went down there? No, you know. In India, though, they do apparently have evidence that Jesus was there at some point. I am not privy to what that evidence is, but I don't know if it's in rock carvings or texts or what it's in. So, but also given that, you know, if we do accept that Mother Mary and potentially Magdalene were reincarnates of Isis, and Isis is an Egyptian deity, it could well be that there was a lot of activity around those worlds or those timelines, or, and then we're also starting to enter into Egypt as remnant of Atlantis, right? So then it's like, wow, once we get off planet with this story, what star systems are we talking about?
Right. I have a girlfriend who, is connected to off-world beings, and they told her that Jesus is actually an off-world being.
That's right. Of course he was. They all were. And then they get identified with certain star systems. But what I understand is that because they are holographic, they are expansions of divine Christ Sophia. So you could see them as coming from Sirius. You could see them as coming from the Pleiades. You could see them as coming from Lyra, Andromeda. It's not untrue. It's all kind of true because there's a resonance of them in all of those places.
Yes, I see what you mean.
The
Absolutely.
ultimate is source creator, goddess, perhaps.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you before we, close for today is around the whole idea of virgin birth. This may or may not have anything to do with Magdalene per se, but can you tell us a little bit about that? It does? Okay.
Yes, I've discovered in my recent book that I'm finishing. Yes. By virtue of her being a tantrika, she was in the lineage of women who knew the conception mysteries. The conception mysteries included divine birth, done either through sacred marriage, high rituals, or virgin birth parthenogenesis. Like they were on the same lineage. And Mother Mary was virgin birth parthenogenesis. Mary Magdalene was virgin birth sacred marriage. That's what I have pieced together from this whole thing. So that's something more I talk about in the class. Like, what is the evidence and what does this mean? And what does this mean for us? Because it's all about resurrecting our own womb powers as women. And what are the tools for that? And Sri Kaleshwar provided, he received from the sands of time, the ancient palm leaf manuscripts, the tools, the mantras and the yantras for women to resurrect their wombs. So that's a part of the dialogue too.
And resurrecting their wombs, can you extrapolate a little bit more of what that means?
Clearing them of energies we don't want that we've accumulated in this and other lifetimes. And intensifying the power of our wombs through these mantra practices that allow us to become healers at a distance, healers in person, and influencers of reality.
Okay.
Masters of the three-dimensional world. Purposes of spiritual service.
That's beautiful. So tell us more about the course in terms of the time commitment, how often people are learning or meeting with you, or is it recorded, is it live, etc. If they start right in February.
Right. So as of this show coming out, we will have 2 more live of the 5. Each of the 5 modules is an hour and a half. And then we have a bonus call, which is a sacred sister who has gone to France and gleaned some of the energies and information, is sharing those transmissions. There's optional play work, and there's an optional cacao ceremony at the end of this month of March, 2023, that people can enroll in either with the course or separately, that is going to be dedicated to Magdalene, connecting with Magdalene, because when we use sacred cacao, it is one of the most friendly heart and mind openers on the planet. And we are able to access deeper levels of information that are also focused on heart information. Okay. So that's coming up. And for those who want to catch any of that live. And for others who are coming at other times, this is available in replay, on into the future. You can register, you can enjoy the course and move along with it at a self-paced manner.
Okay, that's great. I mean, some people definitely practically have how much homework is there,
First of all, the homework is optional. And second of all, it's just practices and stuff that's designed to help you expand your Christ Sophia self, or get introduced to it wherever you are with that, for your own process of soul evolution, as well as the practicalities, the practical ramifications this will have in your life. Being able to be more loving, being able to be more resilient, being able to be more giving, being able to be more clear, wise, have better boundaries, right? Being able to be more of a teacher if you want that, right? So it's meant to enhance where you are right now and where you're going. And
right, so people do not have to have had any, spiritual practice before coming in, or be a teacher or anything like that before coming in.
This is just introducing you to a new angle, a new entry point for this body of spiritual knowledge. And it's for everybody. And all you have to do is go to sevensistersmysteryschool.com/Magdalene, Magdalene. And you will see it. And there's also a free video that I have where I explain more about her mysteries and why I'm connected with, Mary Magdalene, my own journey with her a little bit. And yeah, just sign up. And
okay, well, I have two questions that it's intuiting, that's downloading to me here. Number one is, what about men? Is this relevant to them? And number two is, if a female has like sexual problems that could be generational or interdimensional sexual pain. There's a lot of women out there with sexual pain and womb issues. Would that be at all helpful for them, even physically?
First of all, yes, it's open to men, because of course, when we're learning about these mysteries, we want to learn about the feminine aspect of them and the masculine aspect of them, whatever our sex. If we're women, we want to have that self-identification and that mentorship. And if we're men, we want to have that ability to be in awe and honoring the feminine, and then vice versa, for the sexes. And then there are people who, don't identify with necessarily the binaries, but you find your own medicine in it, right? What is the bridal chamber for that, for you? And for women who have womb issues and pain, yes, this is a direct line into tools and methods that will help you. If not these specific tools from this class, I lead you directly to the Holy Womb Chakra teachings, which are the set of teachings that Kaleshwar brought in from the ancient palm leaf manuscripts. That is the full roster of the mantras and what you need to do over how long of a period to do this clearing, cleansing, and create this miracle space in your life, because it will. And then, in addition to that, of course, I'll be mentioning some of the other resources we have and things that I've done with some of the beautiful starseed sisters like Z Earth Star and Indigo Angel. We collaborated together on a Healing the Womb 3, and so both of those women are providing resources and methods for women to address their womb issues, release themselves of whatever negative energies are there, and come into the healing spiritually, physically, sexually, and emotionally of the womb, because that is really a core aspect of the woman that has gone missing, that has been veiled, and that really needs to be restored.
Yes, I believe so as well. I think probably one of my lives, I may have been, one of those high priestess. I don't remember any of it. I really don't. But it just seems like there's like this twinkle of knowing, or a twinkle of something that is there that's resonating. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So if you could share the website again, so for folks interested.
7, and it's spelled out SEVEN, sisters, plural, mysteryschool.com/ Magdalene, Magdalene. And if you miss the Magdalene spelling, just go to sevensistersmysteryschool.com and you'll be able to see it under, online courses.
Oh, that's fantastic. And where else can they connect with you besides your website?
That's really the best way. But if you want directly to email me, for example, you can email us at Dove, DOVE, at sevensistersofferings.com, and the 7 is spelled out again. And that will go to my team and they will field that for me, or, if you wanted to request information. But if you go around to the website, there's so much rich material there. You'll be like a kid in a candy store. And of course, where I'm on Instagram, Marguerite Rigoglioso. I'm on YouTube, Marguerite Rigoglioso channel. And I'm on Facebook as Marguerite Rigoglioso, as well as Seven Sisters Mystery School. We have a page, so you can check out any and all of that. I have YouTubes, and I do a YouTube live each month, usually around the fourth Friday, and many other resources that people can have to access their own inner path.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Marguerite, for being here today and for being on Light Warrior Radio. So many questions have been answered. I so appreciate the work that you do, all the research you've done, and what you are doing to help men and women around the world with your path. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for listening in. Until next time, we'll see you back on Light Warrior Radio. Bye for now, everyone.